She went to high school at St. Joe's, okay, so it was a full 12-year school. She only lived a block away from the school and church. She was the youngest of 10. She moved to town with Grandpa John Newell and his wife Elizabeth. And after they had 10 kids, she was number 10. 5 boys, 5 girls. And all the boys stayed bachelors and ended up on 2 farms all their lives. And the daughters all got married, one to a Strunk, and another to a Sambothy, a Wilmsmeyer, and Hattie married Hank Flissenkemper, who fought in World War I and was killed. So she remarried Harry Stanger, a railroad engineer that worked in the switch yards down at Santa Fe. And he had money. He had an inboard boat, old-fashioned inboard boat that he stored in his big garage or barn. And we used to play on it all the time. But as he got older, it just sat there and rotted. Yeah. You remember the Uncle Marn story about the wife and the boat and the fireworks and his 6-month-old bride drowned? Uncle Marn, or Marshall, had a sister named Belle, and she's the one who married my grandfather, Albert. I don't remember his middle name, but anyway, his name was Albert. He was born and raised in Hillsboro or Stockport, further north. Anyway, when he lost his wife, he never remarried, and when Grandpa died of a horse sickness, tending a grocery store horse, he died at age about 40 or 42, somewhere in that area. So she remarried a guy named George Robbins and had Aunt Beulah and Aunt Ruby. George was a bad boy, got in trouble all the time, went to jail. And Beulah married a guy named Johnny Parsons from Keokuk, and he was a drunkard and a wife beater. She tried to leave him several times. She finally did, went to Ottumwa, Iowa, became a dental technician. And Ruby, the littler one, she married a guy that lived in Burlington and named Larry Gooch, Gooch, and they had one boy named Jimmy. Well, Larry had some kind of illness that he couldn't stand the damp weather around Iowa. He had to go to a drier climate. So he was up strings and went to Phoenix, Arizona. And he lived there the rest of their lives. Anyway, my folks took Tom on a trip out to California to see the 2 half-sisters. They got to go to Phoenix and then over to L.A. Beulah never had any kids or anything. And the guy she married for the second time was a railroad engineer for the Southern Pacific. So they did all right. And what else? Uncle Marn, well, then when his sister was a widow for the second time, she moved in with him, and he lived in Fort Madison working for the county. And he had an office building on the second floor, the B.B. Hesse building, right on 7th and G. He had a second floor office with a roll top desk, and we could sit at the window and look out down Avenue G west, and especially when parades came to town. We had a perfect viewing spot. Mom, after school, worked at the Kresge store. So every day she would leave school and clerk for 2 or 3 hours a night, I guess, till they closed. I don't know. Anyway, she had a job. Dad was working for Sam and Rose Reichard. Remember the name Rose Reichard? Sam and her had a grocery store called White Market. It was on 7th Street, catty corner from Hesse's. Anyway, he worked there in delivery and everything else they did do in the grocery store. Anyway, I got this from Rose. She later told me in later years, she says, your dad used to sit at the front window and watch your mother go down the street to work. And he said to her, someday I'm going to marry that woman. He had an 8th grade education, so she had a high school education. So somehow or other they met each other. I don't know where. Through friends, I suppose. So they got together and dated. He started dating her, and she accepted him, I guess. Must have. Bob and I both were born up on Avenue F, and when they bought the house, there was 3 houses being built at the same time. We bought the third from the corner, 2332 Avenue E. And Dad bought the house for $4,000 back in 1930, I guess, 31. And he was working for a meat packing company, a coal company, warehouse work, until he finally got into the railroad, where then he spent his 25 years there and got his pension. Well, the corner house was Keener's. Johnny Keener, who was our age, my folks' age. He went in the Navy. His sister Marcella and Mary Lou, they played rummy or euchre or whatever, cards. That was their entertainment back in those days. Invited over to each other's house and played cards. Anyway, Marcella was a good friend of Mom's. And Mary Lou was the youngest of their child, the Keeners, Kieners. The middle house between us then was Smitty's house, W.C. Smith, who, when his wife left him, he didn't need the house, and I don't know who talked to who into what, but he ended up being our boarder. He moved in and sold the house to a guy named Peckham, and he was a city police officer, and him and his wife lived there for years until after we left, sold out, went up to Grandma's house, and he lived in our dining room, which had a small daybed behind the kitchen door. When it was swung open, his bed was there. I mean, he had a front bedroom where the whole family slept. Mom, Dad, and us 3 little Indians. So when Grandma died, or Grandpa died first, and Grandma would leave. So we bought the house, I think. And she stayed there and had a little bedroom up on the ground floor, right off the dining room. And Grandpa's had a bed on the other side of the dining room table that looked out to St. Joe's, the windows there. And I used to stay with them nights as a house guest. And they had a half bath downstairs, over in the corner. And the upstairs had a tub and the whole thing. No showers. Didn't have showers in those days. First one got the cleanest water. The second one got the dirtier water. Third one got what was left of the water. Mom made sure we took baths and got our backs scrubbed a whole bit. Our bedroom was up there in one corner. We had our own little closet with, poles and hangers, and of course hooks on the wall where we hang our everyday clothes. Let's see, we had one regular-sized bed, which 2 of us had to sleep in and fight for blankets. You could bounce a coin on them, because nobody wanted to touch each other in bed when you went to bed. So you stay separated. You grab your corner of the blanket and hold on and pull towards the outer edge of the bed. And the third bed was like a day bed near the window, and one person got to sleep there. I liked that one, but in the summertime, I'd sleep on the glider, which we brought with us, I guess, somewhere from maybe down Avenue E, I guess. And we used to have a platform rocker with it on the glider. It was a screened-in porch, and so we put up those bamboo shades that did drop down, so you get dark at night and you could sleep a little bit in the morning before the sun come up. Took my walks down to the riverfront every day with Grandpa, and he smoked a pipe, and he'd go down there and sit with the cronies on the river, all the retirees, and watch the trains go by all the time. And they built a fort there, a fake imitation fort. Well, down further to the end towards the bridge, they had a harbor there where we used to swim off the sheerboons, flat logs tied together in front of a boathouse, and we'd swim off the sheerboon, dive and play when we were kids during the summer. We walked. You could walk anywhere until you had bicycles. That's down there. That's where I met some of my classmates, Prescott Smith and the Millmeyer brothers, Jim and Joe, Jughead, who's Tommy Reichel.
Okay.
And his older sister was in my age, named Bonita, or Bonnie, and she married a guy named Wayne DeMint. He was a couple years older than us and went to public school. I think they're all dead now on both sides. They lived in the 2400 block up the bluff towards the hill, towards Avenue A, where they put in a subdivision in the fields where we used to play Cowboys and Indians. And on the corner, catty corner from our house, was John Ebner's house, and him and his wife, retirees. They had a little small house that was been built for ours, and it had a garage out in the back, and that had a sloping hill. We call it our snow slide. The hill was, 5 to 10 feet slope, but we'd go walking up the top and get on our sleds and scoot down them in the wintertime. But next to it was a little woods where we had big trees to crawl through and climb around the branches and stuff. We didn't stay overnight, but that was our playground for the school built their playground. And across the alley from us was a small, but it was long enough that they had a field of corn in there, and we'd play in there. And on the 24th Street, what do you call it, right away, we had built 2 horseshoe rings, my dad's friends and the Keeners, and that's where the men pitched horseshoes on Saturday and Sunday. And on the other end of that block was a black couple named Payne, P-A-Y-N-E, and they had an older son and a younger son, and we played with them too. Down the alley, somebody had put green paintbrushes in a bottle and set it in the ledge on the garage, Well, the car was right here, and the paint was right here. And I just took out the brush and reached over and painted the car. Rose Ration, would you believe, was from Janesville. They ran a grocery store and raised a family in Fort Madison. Anyway, I'll skip ahead. When I quit the railroad after 6 years and moved to Rockford for accounting, because that's what I went to school for. Anyway, on one of my audits, I had to go out to Wisey's in Northtown, and we had to be there at 7:30 in the morning. Well, here she comes in to work she came in as a widow clerk and saw the license plate, 56 Iowa. And she ran through the store looking high and low because she knew somebody from Lee County, Iowa was in that store. Well, she finally found me and told me who she was. I think that's where I got the story. Anyway, during my divorce, my first marriage, I stayed at the Y a couple weeks until I found an apartment. And she had rooms to rent on Auburn Street. So I moved in there, and I don't know how long I was there, probably maybe a year. And then when she decided to go back up to Janesville on her retirement, I had to go find another room. And I found a room on a couple blocks west on Auburn Street. She took in boarders and Rose knew her. So I stayed there until I met a buddy to rent an apartment together out on Riverside, where those apartment houses are, Riverside and Rockton. Anyway, I hung around with him a lot, He was a union man, and we constantly had to go out. You couldn't stay home. It was boring. So we ended up going down to Teamsters Union Hall down on 11th Street. So we frequented that place quite a bit. And I also frequented the pump handle in the
I know that place very well too.
Yeah, you worked there.
I did.
Yeah.
This is what we affectionately call the Dirty Harry years, right?
Yeah, bachelor time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I started dating your mother when we had to have partners for moonlight bowling and Friday night fish fries. You know, I had to go somewhere. One of them was a Lithuanian. Anyway, that was a wild and loose time.